You are listening to the Airline Selection Podcast, where we bring you insights to help you succeed at airline selections. This podcast is brought to you by Airline Selection Program. Please welcome your host, airline captain and major airline recruiter, Guillaume Debauchez.
Hello and welcome to episode 3 of the second season of the Airline Selection Podcast, a podcast that is designed to give you tools and strategies to improve your chances at airline selections and also help you have a better career as a pilot altogether. So today again, Dana is with us. How are you doing today, Dana?
Hi, Guillaume. Thank you. I'm doing fine. How about you? Are you excited for the third episode?
I'm very excited to the first episode because we're going to talk about the fact that stress doesn't stop when you join an airline, right? Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
Yeah.
So in the previous episodes, we have discussed how stress can affect you when you're in flight school. But actually, now I want to ask you, do you remember the time when you got your first job as an airline pilot? And what were the things that you would say those were the biggest adjustments that you had to make in your life?
The first job I got as an airline pilot was actually not at BA. I joined a small airline that had the Fokker 100s, which is my first CS-25 airplane was a Fokker 100, which I flew for about a year before the airline went bankrupt. And then I joined BA just before they went bankrupt. So it was a very exciting time for me. The Fokker 100 is a very pleasant airplane, fairly easy to get into, but yet it's got it's glass cockpit, so it's got a modern side to it from the cockpit's point of view. And the airline was fairly small, so it was very easy to manage, not too much complexity. We were flying from a small airport called Manston in Kent, in the southeast of the UK. To destinations that were just regular short-haul destinations. But so the stress that you had that is quick. Well, and we weren't flying that much. In fact, we would have liked to fly more because we were all in this hours building phase where we have kind of a goal to build hours in order to protect yourself. Until you have sort of 500 hours of CS-25, you're kind of at risk of not being able to validate this experience and get a further job. So there was that. And then the biggest worry that we had was that the airline would go bankrupt because the planes were empty. I mean, I remembered flying passengers, I think it was to Amsterdam, to fly 6 passengers out and not very many more back. And that's when you know that the marketing of the company and the whole strategy of the company wasn't working. Mm-hmm. So you would have that stress. Then after that, in my first job, at a major airline at British Airways, the stress was more on the way the operation was laid out, that now I was flying a lot more. So fatigue started to come in. Mm-hmm. And the environment of British Airways in those days, although I always said British Airways was a great employer and they were always great to me, always. From the first to the last day, they were fantastic as an employer. But the environment of the early days of my British Airways career until 2008, I believe, when Terminal 5 came in. It was working between Terminal 1 and 4, and that was very, very difficult in the sense that you would park your car, then you would either walk for 10 minutes or you have to wait for a bus, and then you would get into what was called the Compass Center in those days. You would get there, and everything was sort of, I mean, not literally falling apart, but it was like very old-fashioned. Hadn't been investing in it for years now. And then you'd get into this area where buses were waiting for you again, called cage, so that you couldn't escape because now you were going to get airside. So you got airside at this point. A bus would take you to the airplane, and now you had to carry your suitcase onto a staircase, which you would do very often on short haul. On short haul, you carry a 4-day suitcase, so it's a heavy suitcase all over the place, and you change airplanes often, and it's noisy and all that. And I found that this was perhaps not the dream that I thought it was going to be. And you would get fatigued, particularly on earlies. For me, I'm more of someone who gets up late and sleeps late. To get up at 5 a.m, and sometimes at hotels, you get a hotel room that's not optimal, there's noise, and then you have that fatigue and you hold on coffee. But after 5 coffees, it's just so much that you can drink that is going to help you out. Digestion issues are very common because you go up and down, your body expands and contracts as you go up and you go down, as you climb and you descend. And you should do that 3 times a day, 4 times a day, 5 times a day, 6 times a day for some people flying low cost these days. No doubt your stomach will feel it, and your body feels very dry. So you cannot drink enough water to, and so there's all that. There's all that.
Yeah. Actually, when you said that you have to carry your suitcase around, I think a lot of people would think that, okay, well, after all that physical exercise, you would sleep quite well. But then, as you also told me, that this is not really the case. And
No.
Mhm.
No, and it's tedious to carry your suitcase across staircases. I actually have a long-term injury because of it in my back. And I'm not the only one. British Airways is very good with it. Actually, they taught you how to carry your suitcase, and it was also training that was given to cabin crew. Cabin crew are very much subject to injuries, in particular shoulder injuries, because of having to do this all the time with really heavy dog boxes. And this is why at BA, and I thought it was right, they would not help passengers to put things in the hat racks. If you can't lift it, you can't have it. Basically, that was a very good policy at the end of the day. If it's too heavy, it goes in the hold. But I got it from carrying my suitcase at the back, and I've got a long-term injury in the whole of the right side of my back because of this.
I'm sorry to hear.
Yeah, but that's okay. It's I get a massage every now and then by the physiotherapist, and I have to be careful when I turn in my bed. But anyway, it's fine. So let's get back to the topic.
Maybe we can talk a little bit more about sleep because, as you said, that sometimes you just, it is very possible that when you're sleeping, not in your own bed, but in a hotel, especially if you're flying through, let's say you're flying through different time zones, you have an irregular flight schedule, then you can have what's called a circadian misalignment, which
absolutely.
is basically, when an individual's, when your internal body clock is out of sync with external cues. So, for example, do you see the sun outside, or it's just, or maybe the work schedules are also different. Maybe you hear maybe people outside of your door when you think that, okay, well, it's night for me, everyone should be sleeping, but then you hear that people are active. That can also disrupt it a little bit.
And that's nonstop as a pilot. Your circadian rhythm, whether you're on short haul or on long haul, your circadian rhythm will get affected. If you're on short haul, I describe the short haul operation of a long haul of a major airline, which is that you go for sometimes only 1 day, sometimes 2, 3, up to 4 days. And I know it's the same at Air France. You go all across Europe, and in the middle days you just fly through Heathrow, or you would just fly through Paris. But you're always on earlies or on lates, either one or the other. So if you are on earlies, if you're unlucky, your first flight will be at 7, which means you get up at 4. Okay, because you remember you got to get through that parking lot, that bus ride to get to the briefing place, and and it takes time. Now, when you get to long haul, so you are on earlies, which means you're on earlies 4 days in a row. You are like exhausted. And for instance, if you are now, say you are in Rome, and this I remember Rome particularly because the area around the elevators in the hotel where we had was marble, and then after that there was some carpet leading to the corridors. But then if you were just 2 or 3 rooms from the elevator, which was not considered close to an elevator, if now you have to get up at 4 a.m. the next day, you have to try and sleep at 8 or 9. But in Italy, people go to dinner at that time. So you hear people walk all over the place. They are happy. They're there in front of the elevator and they talk. And this is causing you stress again. Like, it's like, geez, I'm not. And when your sleep train, I call it the sleep, the train of your sleep comes in and you miss it, now you get more stressed. So this happens all the time. This is why airline staff have to go into 4-star hotels at a minimum, but even they can't always produce perfection. So you are displaced even on short haul, no doubt. On late, it's much less, because on late, it's particularly in Europe, you will end up landing at 11:30. You'll make it to the hotel, or 10:30. You'll make it to the hotel, and you're in your room by midnight, and you'll go to bed at 2, because you need some wind down, and then you get up at 10 in the morning, and it's you fly again. You report again at like 1 p.m. This is much easier to manage. But on earlies, you are really feeling like a complete misalignment of your circadian rhythm, which also your family has to live with, because now if you, the night before you go, everybody's got to tiptoe around the house to let you sleep.
Yes.
And if you're a low-cost pilot and you go home every night, that's all the time that your family has to live like this.
That is very true. That honestly, I also remember it. We had a discussion recently with my boyfriend. Why am I so quiet all the time? And in one of the previous episodes, I told you that my parents were pilot and flight attendant, and I realized that it was because I always had to be on my tiptoes so that I would not wake them up. Because if you can't sleep a lot, then what are the effects that you can feel?
Well, if you don't sleep a lot, you'll get more tired. You can get irritable. You can get you struggle to focus, and you just get fatigued. You're just exhausted. So you're not yet in your optimal state, and it's very, very difficult. And I think people understand that pilots get very tired. Somehow they expect that we're some sort of superhuman person that can feel very alert in the middle of the Atlantic coming back from the US. Well, no, your pilots are tired. They are tired, which is why also the training is so stringent, so that even when you're at the lowest point of your of your sort of circadian rhythm, you're still safe enough. Okay.
Yes.
But it's not always optimal. No.
Yes, because that's the thing, that, as you mentioned, it has not. So it also has an effect on your cognitive abilities, and you're more prone to get stressed, and maybe your reaction times will be slower. But it also has an effect on what we call the amygdala. It's a part of your brain that is its job is to process the emotions, and it's also affected by the lack of sleep. So you can be emotionally a little bit changeable, because you might be even short-tempered, and that is something or moody even, and that is something that can not only have an effect on, let's say, the crew that you're with, but also on your relationships and your social life outside of the work.
Definitely, and also, it's my story has been that of 2 divorces, and they were both, I would say, induced by this sort of variability of life. Where I would never make a Christmas, or hardly. I mean, I cannot remember having made a summer holiday, because you fly more in the summer. You could have them, but it would come at a significant cost, because if you bid for them, I mean, I think at Emirates you could get it once every 3 years, roughly, if you bid well. But if you got that, then you wouldn't get the other holiday. So it was like 1 out of 3 you would get typically, because everybody bids for the same days. At BA, because it's a pure seniority-driven system, which is very, very good, that's fine. But in the first year, you would get very few weekends. So think of how a relationship can survive that. And if someone cares for you very much, they will manage that for a while. But all relationships go through ups and downs. And if your relationship goes through a down at a time when all this is affecting you quite a lot, well, that can get a relationship to dip completely, because the person will go, well, actually, do I really want to be with someone who can't be here for Christmas? Do I really want this? Do I really want that? Or would I not prefer someone who works in an office and I can be in sync with? And I've had enough of tiptoeing around the house, and I've had enough of this and that. And that, believe me, will have big effects on your life and on your children's life, and even on your spouse as well, of course, because they are the first ones to have been affected in the first place. In the old days, divorces have always been quite high for pilots, but in the old days, some of the colleagues who are older, they're retired now, they would tell me there was this sense of a mission. It was typically more of the man would be the pilot typically, although there were been exceptions even in the 80s and 90s, but the family, it would be like almost like a military thing, that there was the mission, the whole family's mission was revolving around this person's career, whereas now it's more like quality of life is important, balance is important, and one person in the household sacrificing their life for the other person's mission is not something that's very popular for very many spouses these days,
Yes.
which is very understandable. But that's something that you need to understand, which is why you need to know that your life as a pilot will affect that of others, that you are will be subject to these stresses, that you will also put these stresses onto your spouse, and not because your spouse is a horrible spouse, it's also because you've got a really tough job, a really, really tough job. So, yeah.
Okay, then maybe we can go back a little bit to the sleeplessness, just because
Yeah.
I plan to
Yeah.
share just a little bit of what can you actually do about it. Because of course you're quite restricted. There is a schedule to follow, but what are the small parts or small steps that you can follow to just try and make your life a little bit better, or
Yeah.
to try and get some more sleep? Because I know for sure that probably I would not be a good pilot myself, because if if I get stressed, I can't sleep. If I know that I have to wake up because I have something important, let's say a flight to catch, I cannot sleep. So what are the things that you can try to do to get a little bit more sleep? So a lot of
Well,
people say, oh,
yeah,
yeah,
go for it.
you can
Sorry.
also go.
No, go for it.
Okay. But don't worry, I will also ask you about your experience and what worked for you. But I just wanted to share first that there are certain parts that a lot of people talk about. So, for example, because we have a mind and body connection, so that if our body feels good, then our mind is also at ease. So, for example, a lot of people swear by exercising, because just, I think, 30 minutes a day of aerobatic activity, that's also quite important. That's more of like cardio, so to say, or even just for going for a walk. Exercise, even a little bit in the day, can improve your sleeping quality so much more. And of course, if you pay attention to having a balanced diet next to that, that can also regulate your stress hormones, hydrating yourself, because I think that's also something that you have mentioned, how when you're in the airplane, you feel that you just can't drink enough water. Of course, that's a tough one to battle, but still it's important to try to pay attention to. And also just to keep in mind that small changes can have very big impact. And you should also just try to find what comes naturally to you, whatever you try to pick up. For example, in my generation, Gen Z is all about knitting, for example. I'm not saying that you have to knit, but try even those kind of things that maybe you would not have thought of. You, for example, mentioned meditation. What are the other things that you think could help people to sleep, or what is something that has worked for you?
Yeah, I entered meditation through when I started to do long haul, in fact. So there's something we
Okay.
didn't touch on too much, and then I'll answer your question, because we didn't talk too much about what changes when you go long haul. Because I told you, actually, you can get circadian displacement when you're on short haul, and quite heavily as well, in fact. But on long haul, it's another dimension. And on long haul, you can get a double whammy, which is if you fly for a place like Emirates or in Qatar or any of those places where the airport's open 24/7, you'll get a lot of your flights take off at night, at 4 a.m. Okay, so now you not only have to tip the tiptoeing around the house business, you also have the traveling several time zones away business. And when you could be trying to sleep when it's like 2 in the afternoon, or when it's, I mean, I never did that. I always tried to, even on a 24-hour layover, I always tried personally to adjust to the local time a bit. And I was quite good at that, actually. That was a British Airways technique. The Emirates technique was to stay in Dubai time, which I never like to do, because it's like, well, I'm going to eat breakfast at 8 p.m. How's that going to work? But and I like to get out in and walk around when it's not dark, so I had a different, but whichever way, you can get severely impacted, and it could take you a lot of time to recover from your flights, to the point where you just barely recovered when it's time to go again, which means you never really recover. And it's only when you're on holiday for more than 2 weeks that you realize, oh, this is what being healthy feels like. And I can tell you, for me, in my case, after I stopped flying, it took me 6 months before sleeping again healthily. And I remember with emotion, almost tearful emotion, when I started to feel the sleep coming at like 11 p.m. This feeling of that, my body is telling me it's time. I had been completely broken by years and years of being displaced. Interesting, right? So now I'm going to answer your question. What can you do? And meditation, how I got into that is on long haul, you have at places like BA, Air France, Lufthansa will be the same, where you fly far away, you'll have 3 crew operations. And so you spend a bit of time in the bunk. And I found that some people can't sleep in the bunk. And I found that I was responding quite well to self-hypnosis. So in those days, we already had iPhones and stuff. So I think just when I got long haul, we were on the iPhone 3, I think, and there was already an app. For self-hypnosis. So I would listen to those tapes, and it worked very well. It put me in some sort of a mini trance state where my mind would kind of get confused, and bang, I would fall asleep. And I could do this at 9 a.m, which was insane, because very often, if the plane, on long haul at BA wouldn't take off at 9, but you'd take off the earliest. Going to Japan, some flights take off at 11 in the morning. And then you're supposed to sort of, if you're the first one to rest, you have to rest at 12. Not easy. And this would work for me. And that was for me a portal into this whole area of, hypnosis. And then I got interested in meditation. Then when I was in Dubai, I ended up doing some yoga, and I ended up doing a yoga retreat. And then I got into all of this, and then it really worked for me to balance my mind as well. And I got interested in all of this. What else can you do? I would say the one thing you could do is to be healthy as much as you can. Smoking's not going to help you. Now, if you're a smoker, you're a smoker. I'm not going to tell you that you have to quit. I'm telling you that it will have having a healthy lifestyle, doing some cardio, like you just said, trying to be as healthy as possible, because this job is unhealthy. Being in a metal tube, even if the tube is now composite, for many airplanes, and so therefore the cabin is lower and it's more humid and you don't get as dehydrated, it's still not the healthiest environment in the world. And the healthier you can remain, the better it will be for you. I used to go to the gym every single time I was on a layover where there was a gym, or I would go and run on the street. I would go and do some exercise all the time. And you can tell, some people don't look after themselves, and they end up putting on a lot of weight, which puts strain on their system. And I don't think that it would have a very good effect on their ability to manage stress. And I've always been surprised how hard must it be to carry this suitcase if you're very overweight? If it's the case, it's the case. It's no judgment. It's just that I feel that remaining healthy as much as possible is a good technique. Yeah.
Yes, I see what you mean. Definitely. It's and if you just think about it, if you're eating the right kinds of food, which also helps with this, that also gives you energy. It's quite weird, but once one tries it, then you can feel how, let's say, going from fast food to healthy food, you would think that, of course, a salad is not going to give me a lot of energy, but actually it does. You just have to get into it first.
It does. The body is quite frugal, actually. Your body doesn't need much to function. And a lot of what people eat when it makes them overweight, it's not their body that's eating it, it's their head. You open the fridge looking for something to eat, but actually you're not hungry. And there's something that it's your mind that wants something for comfort, something to do, and a retribution for a long day. The body doesn't need it. It's something also we learn. I think I learned this at BA, was that because we're so dehydrated on the plane, often it's not because you are hungry that you want to eat some nuts or whatever there is that you can find. It's because you're thirsty. So if you feel hungry, drink first, wait 20 minutes. And if you're still hungry now eat. Because remember, now you're on long haul. So you could be just feeling hungry at a stupid time, like not knowing what time it is and you could be eating and eating and eating if you're not careful. So that's another technique, is to drink first and then see if you're still hungry.
Yeah, especially because, as you said, on long haul, you're sitting so much. So some kind of physical activity is definitely something that you can do.
Yeah, so essentially trying to remain healthy in your body, healthy in your mind as much as possible, knowing that this job, it's a great job, but it will destabilize you like nothing else. It's a very odd job in a way. When I look back on it, I still have a lot of emotion when I look at a plane. I still remember that every single time, even at 3 a.m. when I passed the threshold of the door of the plane, I was feeling that I was there where I belonged. Still, in my case, I'm a good example, where this job has consequences of my life. And so that's why we teach you to be a pilot, but also to be a happy pilot, to be a pilot. That's 2 ways to be a happy pilot is, first of all, is to have the career that you deserve. Okay, we talked about a lot about anxiety in the early stage of your career, and to have this first job fast to alleviate financial strain. And then after that, also to have the career that you deserve, to be in a good airline that will look after you as much as you will look after its passengers and colleagues. An airline that looks after you, they can perhaps offer you part-time options when you need to, when life's throwing a challenge at you, or when you're feeling tired, that you can go part-time. Airlines that have the full array of solutions that can allow you to be to survive this career until you're 65 whilst remaining motivated by your mission. Okay, that's also a good tip. So in order to succeed, to have your optimal career, this is why we've got all these solutions for you with our courses, but also with these discussions that we have now, so that you develop the right attitudes in order to remain happy by working on yourself. Definitely.
That is actually a good connection to our upcoming articles, because I think I've asked all the questions that I had for this session. So I just wanted to let you know that because you mentioned that how a person can improve themselves. So in the next or upcoming episodes, and also in the next articles, we're going to talk about self-awareness and emotional intelligence, something that we can all learn still, because, well, life is about lifelong learning. So
absolutely,
we will dig into that in the next episode.
Thank you, Dana. Okay, well, we'll say goodbye now and see you in the next episode.
Okay, see you later.
Bye.
Bye.
This podcast was brought to you by Airline Selection Program, a company that is focused on helping you succeed at airline selections. Our flagship course, Advanced Interview Course, has helped hundreds of pilots just like you become successful. Visit our website at online.airlineselectionprogram.com and find out how you too can get the job of your dreams.